Hi everyone, welcome to my weaving room. I always do the videos, seems to be on Doris's. Um, but my room is all set up, and has been for a while, just with a temporary loom. And the reason I say that is this loom has a lot of issues. Got it cheap. I have done about a dozen or so rugs off of it. It is warped, cracked, it has issues. It's going to last until I have to take this down. We just officially listed our house today, so pretty sure we'll have an offer in a week or two. So all this hard work of setting it up, it's going to come down. But I have a new loom, so that will be exciting, and I'll do a video of setting that one up. I just want to see how the little bit of changes we did worked with this anyways. So number one, the difference between my loom, or this loom, and Doris's, the other loom, the smaller one. Besides the size, this is a folding loom. I recommend not doing this with a folding loom. It just can't handle it. It wants to collapse up. I have these things cranked tight as possible. If I might even put a nail in it if I was going to keep it and try to nail this, but it just wants to fold up because of all the tension that's with the sandpaper. Instead of pulling the threads, it wants to fold. So I get up when it's time to advance it, walk over. I use a shuttle because, of course, this is at least over 30 inches wide, and then I push those down, and they won't get tangled because this little reed right here divides them out, so it's not a big deal if they get a little messy looking. Push it down, go forward, advance it, and then that's just preventing it from folding up. Still don't have to. Like I said, I've done a dozen or so rugs on here now. I don't have to redo this every time. I don't have to rethread it, which that was the part I absolutely hated. So now I like everything about weaving. So, alright, so that was one thing I recommend. Don't do it with a folding loom. You can, but you are going to get frustrated. The next thing that we changed was the angle of the spools. These are at about 10%. There's just, let me come forward a little bit more. So you can see that there's just a slight angle on them. Prevents them from popping off when the thread's at the front. When we did some samples, if you did straight, that's what would happen. With Gary's and Doris's, they had a much higher angle on theirs. And I believed I showed that in the video. So with that higher angle, the thread, when it got to the back, it would come and wrap around, and of course it'd be too tight on here because this just didn't roll. So they put a little, I don't know, a little board between all of them. I call it like a bob and stop. So when the thread got back here, it hit that, but it went to wrap around. So that's how they prevented that. So we tried, and that's I think he said a 10% angle. So if you can see, they're also offset. So to give them strength, this dowel goes into about here. So when Gary did these, he just offset them so they wouldn't hit each other, and it made it pretty strong. So these things aren't coming out. I don't even think they're glued. I think they're just tapped into. So you can glue them. You can do whatever you want. They just got dowels, and then they cut them down to about, you can see some stick out, some don't, but they're about generally the same length. Here's a really long one. That one probably just didn't tap in very tight. All right, on the bottom, this, let's see if I can line up evenly. Dowel, you can do a metal rod, is just, you're going to measure your spool. So with our spool, I get it from the same spot every time, so I know I want this dowel just on the front of them. So when the thread is at the front, it's not going to cause a problem. It can still go under and go this way. This one, if you can see, is just on the inside because I want the thread to feed around it. So if I have it just on the outside, that would might cause these to pop off. So I just have them a little bit inset. So there is a F on here because that's the front, and then that's the back, just because we know that was the only difference on the two sides. They are offset. It doesn't really make a difference for the threads. On the top, I think Gary did this also on his. You don't have to. He's glued it. He's got nails coming from the top or screws, but he also put brackets up, little T brackets and an L bracket, just to make it stronger. And I think he did it on the bottom also. Can't quite see from this angle, but that is the loom. So here's my lovely doodle. Measure that back beam. So I measured this whole thing. That's 46 inches. So on the outside of this board to the outside of that leg, 46 inches. We did a big old chunk of wood. You can do square. He just angled it to make it a little prettier. But we do want the space to put the dowels in. Alright, so it's a pretty solid piece of wood on both sides. They're scrap wood, but it all works. So now that's going to be 46 inches because the back of the beam is 46 inches. This one and this one are going to be the posts. They're 2x2s. You can do a solid piece of wood if you wanted. There's no saying you have to do it this way. But you're going to want to measure. So it is 4 inches between the pegs because the spools are 3 inches wide on mine. So by having a 4-inch space between them, that gave a little space. You can probably go down to 3.75 inches. That's what we did. We tightened it up on this one because I needed more spools in the much tighter space. So we did 3.75 between. You could do it between the pegs also. That still gave a room for the threads to come down. If you can, I would go up to the 4 inches, 3.75. God, it'll be a little tight, but it still worked. I wouldn't go lower than 3.75 between the spools and having that space. So your threads will come down. The distance of this, I don't know, every time we just eyeball that for when these come in. So you do want them lower than your pegs. I want it lower so then it feeds up. I believe they're about the same height for those two dowels going in, so that's not a big deal. You aren't going to want them too much difference, so they'll feed in just fine. So by doing 46 inches, the inside of my loom is 40 inches, where after all the mechanisms and wood and all that. But your threads are going to come on the inside, so you're going to lose some spaces here. So this one's going to go on the inside, or you might not even use one of them. You should have extra spaces on here, but it depends on how high your ceiling is. So I can't remember how many we have. So a lot more spools on here than what I'm actually using, because we just measured my ceiling. Let's see. There's a space between it. And then that's how we figured out how many rows we're going to need, that we had to tighten it up because I have a little smaller ceiling in here, or shorter. So I did 11 rows, I believe. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 11. I think Doris has, can't remember how many she has. So that made us go a little taller. So there's about a foot between the ceiling and the rack. So if you have a really short ceiling, you're going to have to adjust. You could also build 2 shorter racks and have another one in the back. There's so many variables on here. So say you could only go, this high. You could build another one and have the threads just feed under. I actually have one that's really short that I'm making that's out of a baby crib rack, the ends. And that's how I'm doing it with that one. So I have some long nails in it, and I'm going to just kind of test and see how that works. And it's going to feed underneath both of them and go through. So as long as you have a little bit of angle, then your threads won't pop off. I hope that answers everyone's questions. So just as a recap, once your threads are going down here, they go through a reed that you make a little, he did a little channel in here for them to sit, and then he put this is a long screw with bolts, and tightened it in there so it can come out if I wanted to. We do have a D-ring on here, so it has come in handy where I had to take this off. And still have the threads on here, so I didn't have to re-thread anything. I made a mistake on something, and I was about a quarter way through, and that's a lot of threads to redo. So sandpaper is glued down, and I do recommend Gorilla Glue. It is messy. You're gonna have to take a razor blade to get off the extra foam once it puffs up and dries. This was a hollow beam that had open spaces, so we put a board on. I ran out of Gorilla Glue, so I tried another glue, and you can see there's no sandpaper here because it just gave way and just the threads were pulling it and it all came off. It's still kind of tacky, and I've had this done for about 4 months. Gorilla Glue is what we used on Doris's, and I wouldn't use anything else after this point, just how fed up and a problem that caused. So definitely recommend that. Don't use any other glue besides that. So I'm not really pushing a product, but it worked, and it's still holding strong on both looms, so out of the other kinds we used. So your threads are going to come through, go around. That's a fine grit sandpaper. It'll go up, over, down, and around, up. Don't forget to go around this, through all your huddles. This is a 6 harness. You can see they're warped in spots, like I said. It's a little dark over here. And then it's going through your reed for your beater bar. So, and then of course I think this is denim. So it's holding up really well for the jeans here. Got some red and white, so. And then of course around a typical feed. So once you have it this way, this all stays the same. It just seems weird the first time you do it. But after the first time, it's just, you'll love it. I hope that answers everyone's questions. So every creel rack will be a little different. Like I said, the main thing is you're going to want 3.75 to 4 inches between the posts. This is for the 3-inch spools that I have. And same with the pegs going in between, so you have enough room on that. Once you know the distance and the width, then you're going to know how many posts you're going to have going between. And you can figure out the height that you're going to need. And my theory is the more I can put on there, the better, because I always have extra spools. So, and 10-degree angle also. Happy weaving!